We'll move on to our next paper. This is titled on the effectiveness of dataset watermarking, and it will be presented by Buse. Buse, would you please share your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah,
okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Hello everyone, I'm Buse. I'm a doctoral researcher in Aalto University. And in this presentation, as you can see, I will talk about on the effectiveness of dataset watermarking. So let's start with what is watermarking and what does it mean in machine learning. So watermarking, as you already know, it means that it is covertly embedding an information, a secret information into digital content to later claim copyright, but without affecting the quality of the media. And as you can see in this slide, it may not be always covered because we all agree that the owner of this image is Shutterstock, but sometimes it's covered. Watermarking is also a well-known method in machine learning because model owners watermark the machine learning models. And if this model is kind of distributed illegally in an unauthorized way, then owners can use this watermark and use this information to claim the ownership, verify that the model is their model and claim copyright. And the question is, okay, should we also concern about dataset watermarking? Because like machine learning models, they constitute an economic value. In fact, deep learning and deep learning uses datasets, and deep learning is data hungry. Providing a labeled dataset is like a big chunk of cost of training the deep learning models. So the question is, should we watermark the datasets and how effectively? But first, let's look at the dataset sharing pipeline. So you're a dataset owner, you share your dataset with like private clients via unrestricted license, or you put it on the cloud, you share it publicly with a restricted license. Benign clients can download this dataset, use their own purposes like statistical analysis or building a machine learning model and use locally. But there might be some malicious parties. They might use the dataset without any authorization, or breaching the license conditions and monetize the machine learning models. So in this case, dataset owners should have the ability to demonstrate that, okay, this model is built from my dataset and there was a breach of contract. So in dataset watermarking, what the dataset owner should do is to put an information to some samples of its dataset, and again share this dataset in different ways, so that this information should be transferred into the machine learning model. So therefore, we state that an effective dataset watermarking method should be independent from the model architecture, because you can control what's on the malicious client side. It should be independent from the learning procedure, and it should be even robust to input transformations like preprocess, like in the preprocessing, rotation, rescaling, etc. And it should be also shouldn't be easily detected, because all malicious clients, adversaries, have the complete data set. These watermarked samples shouldn't be easily detected by a visual inspection. Yeah, and so there should be a way of verification of ownership between the data set and the owner. So dataset watermarking, compared to the machine learning model watermarking, it's a relatively new topic. So we found that there are only a few methods for dataset tracing and dataset watermarking. One of them is radioactive data. It's a dataset tracing method for image datasets. It adds the watermark knowledge into the feature space of the image. And the second one is backdoor-based watermarking. It's actually the same method is used for watermarking models. In backdoor-based watermarking, they put a square into the image, so they put the information, watermarking information to pixel space, and it's also used for watermarking image datasets. And there's a third method, audio watermarking. It looks similar to the radioactive data because it puts the watermarking information into the frequency domain. So in this work, we only care about image datasets. So from radioactive data and backdoor-based watermarking, we eliminate backdoor-based watermarking because first, backdoor-based watermarking change the label of the watermark sample. So if an adversary carefully checks all images, it could just say that, okay, it's wrongly labeled, I'm going to remove it, so it can be easily identified. And it's also, if the data set is really big, it can be identified and mitigated by many different backdoor removal methods. So it's not an efficient method. So we will look at the radioactive data. So radioactive data is proposed by Facebook, and it's not intended exactly for the ownership verification. It's intended for tracing provenance, but I will show that it could be used for ownership verification. So what it does is it tries to find a minimally modified version of an image and aims to transfer this knowledge to any model trained with this modified watermark data sets. It has two different phases, embedding and verification. In the embedding phase, as a dataset owner, you train a model, a marker model with the clean original dataset. And then for each class, you create a randomly generated unit vector. They call it carrier U. And then they shift some percentage of the samples in the direction of the carrier. And it means that if you use DNN, you align the classifier part, the last layer of the DNN, with the direction of the carrier, with the direction of the U. So it does both white box and black box verification. What white box verification means, dataset owner or any other verifier has a complete access to the suspected model. So you can use any weight, any parameter of the model to do the verification. So in white box verification, they use hypothesis testing based on the cosine similarity. You can measure the cosine similarity between the carrier and the classifier. So based on this information, they came up with the hypothesis testing idea.
Buse, we lost you. Can you hear us?
So you don't have enough confidence to refute the null hypothesis. So we can say that radioactive data works well, but its white box verification doesn't work for small data sets. Okay, now I will return to black box verification once more. It's effective, as I said before, but the algorithm inherently exposes watermarked samples during querying. So adversary can detect watermarks, can try to do like match with its training set. But we also check what if the verifier can perturb the watermark queries with a random noise. Is it like a reasonable way? And we found that, yeah, it can perturb queries, avoid detection, and do a successful verification. So in the second part of the paper, we try to understand, okay, we can use radioactive data for dataset watermarking, but what about model watermarking? Can we use it? For that, we implemented a model extraction attack called knockoff nets. It basically, what it does is to like exhaustively query the model and gets the whole prediction probability vector and with like, and also does the squaring with the completely unrelated natural samples. They use ImageNet. We also use ImageNet, and then train a surrogate model, FA star, in this table. And we realized that, okay, you can do white box verification still. It only fails for one case, CIFAR 10 star, but it already fails for the dataset watermarking. So the white box verification looks good. In black box verification, there are only two exceptional cases. You can verify the stolen model, but when you check the test accuracy, the decrease in test accuracy from victim to surrogate, it's really like more than 4 percentage point, and it's really low, like 59, 54% test accuracy. So even if you can't verify that the model is yours, the model has like a really low performance compared to your model. And finally, we try to understand how many watermark samples should we use in the black box verification, because if you use all watermark samples in the verification, then the adversary might understand, okay, someone is trying to verify it. So we try to measure how many samples you can use. And we realized that you don't need to use all watermark samples in your watermark data set. In CIFAR 10, for example, you check the loss difference. The loss difference should be higher than 0, and it requires only 50 watermark samples in black box verification in model extraction. So this is pretty low. So also it's nice because you don't disclose so many information about the watermark samples during the verification. So as in conclusion, we say that radioactive data has potentials for demonstrating ownership for data sets, and as well as they have potential to become an alternative ownership verification technique for against model extraction attacks. Black box verification algorithm is quite effective. White box verification algorithm is also effective, but it's limited. It has limited effectiveness in small data sets. So that's all. Thanks for listening. You can check the link for like more research, more topics in our group. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there any question from the audience here? Yeah, please go ahead. You can come here and ask a question.
Hi, so I have a question. You said earlier that by repeatedly querying the model, you can, by looking at the probabilities, you can infer whether the watermark data set has been used. I mean, could it not be that the model, like the person who has developed the model is getting similar results? Like what would have been happened if he was not using the watermark data set?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. So for repeated query, I mentioned in model extraction attacks, but
so I was wondering that basically the watermark samples are going to bias the model towards certain data points. Is that how it's working?
It's like, okay, so how it works in model extraction. So it's kind of the watermark samples are shifted inside a cluster. So they are not exactly in the decision boundary. So if you put something on the decision boundaries, then it may not survive during model extraction attack. But in radioactive data, the watermark sample are shifted inside the cluster, and this knowledge transfers to the stolen models during model extraction attack. And there are also a couple of different methods, like dataset inference. There's like a method called dataset inference. They also show that you can, the knowledge in the training set actually transfers to the stolen model if this knowledge is like if the model is certain about some samples, this certainty is transferred to the stolen models. So that's the same idea applies here. I hope I answered your question.
I see. So is this, so what is, could you repeat, like what kind of scores do you get if you want to infer whether a model has been using the watermark data set? Like what is the accuracy?
Oh, it's, you mean the accuracy for the watermarked samples?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we didn't report the accuracy specifically, but the accuracy is high because the loss on watermark samples are really close to 0. So I assume from that the accuracy on watermark samples should be high because you don't change the label also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Quick question. Great presentation. Good information. I this presentation. Is there an optimum distribution, like an optimum amount of watermark samples that should be present in a data set so that we can accurately point out that the data set was used, or like it is independent of that amount of samples?
You mean the amount of
Watermark samples? Doesn't
Sorry?
matter.
The amount, okay, yeah. The amount of watermark samples might matter because when you, for example, I could go here, yeah. Because when you increase the watermarking ratio in the second column here to 10% to 20%, for example, the black box verification, you get higher values, and in white box verification you get like a lower value. So well, if you put more watermark samples, then maybe you can get a more confident results, but it's already good. It already gives good results in 10% watermarking ratio. So maybe you don't need to increase the watermarking samples that much according to your need, if you want, because it also doesn't affect the test accuracy that much. But if you probably use watermarking ratio, I don't know, maybe 50%, I think it might start to affect the test accuracy. So it depends on, I think, what you want to do, like protect the test accuracy or do more confident verification. But based on our result, I think 10% is kind of a good selection for watermarking ratio.
Cool, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Is there any other question from the online audience? Okay, so if there is no other question, let us thank the speaker.